Now, Israel for last many years and even decades has been accused repeatedly by Iran of killing many of its senior scientists, but it has declined to comment at this point of time. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, remember, had once described Mohsen Fakhrizadeh as the father of Iranian nuclear program. Netanyahu had once told the public to remember that name when talking about Fakhrizadeh. Netanyahu mentioned the slain Iranian nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh during an address on the 30th of April in 2018, during which he had said that he had proof of an Iranian nuclear weapons program that could be activated at any time.
A key part of the plan was to form new organizations to continue the work. This is how Dr. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, head of Project Ahmad, put it. Remember that name, Fakhrizadeh. So here's his directive. It's right here. And today, in 2010 or 2018, this work is carried out by Sapand. That's an organization inside Iran's defense ministry. And you will not be surprised to hear that Sapand is led by the same person who led Project Ahmad, Dr. Fakhrizadeh, and also, not coincidentally, many of Sapand's key personnel worked under Fakhrizadeh on Project Ahmad. So this atomic archive clearly shows that Iran planned at the highest levels to continue work related to nuclear weapons under different guises and using the same personnel.
Now, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was widely seen as one of the key individuals behind the Iranian nuclear weapons program. Iran, remember, has always insisted that the nuclear program is for peaceful civilian purposes. The United States has also slapped sanctions on Fakhrizadeh in 2008 for engaging in what it describes were activities and transactions that contributed to the development of Iran's nuclear program. Now, the incumbent US President Donald Trump has retweeted the news on Twitter that was originally tweeted by an Israeli journalist. Now, we earlier spoke with Mir Javed Anfar, an author and also a Middle East analyst who joined us from Tel Aviv, and this was his take on this big development.
In terms of the implications, look, Mr. Fakhrizadeh was pointed out by Israel as the person behind the military program of Iran's nuclear, the military part of Iran's nuclear program, as your report quite rightly said. So there's always this concern in Israel that, you know, the Islamic Republic of Iran has said that Israel should be wiped off the face of the earth. And then 2 years ago, they tested a ballistic missile that can reach Israel, and they wrote on it in Hebrew that Israel must be wiped off the face of the earth. So there's always been this concern that, you know, if Iran develops a bomb, then it could be very dangerous for Israel. So this is why Israel and also is being blamed, and also other because of other attempts that have been attributed to Israel. In terms of the impact that it will have, I don't think the Iranians are going to avenge the killing just yet. They will probably wait until Mr. Trump is out of the office. They see Mr. Trump as a very close ally of the state of Israel. And then once Mr. Biden comes into office, I think we are likely to see an Iranian reaction. How hard it will be and where it will take place is difficult to know. But if I were a betting man, I would say it will most probably be something on the border between Israel and Syria. In terms of, look, the Iranians fired missiles at an American military base in Iraq. Will they fire missiles at Israel? It is possible, as I said, because see, Iran has forces in Syria, which is to our northern border with the state of Israel. So yes, it is possible that there could be a missile strike, or it could be that they will also, that the Iranians will take part in assassinations against Israeli officials. But what I have to say is that if and when that happens, we're likely to see this to escalate, because No Israeli leader is going to allow that to go unanswered. And so, and also we have to also take into consideration that, in terms of missile capability and missile defense, Israel has a superior hand in this, and also in the field of intelligence. So yes, we are likely to see an Iranian strike. It could be a missile strike, but Iran will have to take into consideration an Israeli counterstrike, and also the fact that, as I mentioned, Israel has superiority in a number of key military and intelligence areas. The hardliners will say in Iran that somebody very important in our country has been assassinated. Therefore, it is very important that we settle scores. It could push, on the one hand, it could push Iran and motivate Iran even more to pursue a nuclear weapon, because they could say, look, we're confronting somebody who is assassinating the head of our program, and the best revenge is to go down the path that he wanted, which presumably was to make a nuclear weapon. I think that is going to be one of the scenarios. The other scenario which we could see from Iran is that they would go back to the negotiations with Biden and try to reach a good deal with Biden, and they will try to reach a deal that is against the interest of the state of Israel. That could also happen. We have to remember that Israel wasn't very happy with the Obama-Iran deal. So we could also see something along those lines that the Iranians might decide that the best way would be to create a wedge between Israel and United States by reaching a diplomatic solution, that the diplomatic solution would be the best way to go. But, it really depends what happens. It really depends on Biden. And it also depends on whether Mr. Fakhrizadeh passed on his knowledge to his disciples. He probably did. I don't think he was the only man. But in Iran, who knows how to make a nuclear weapon. But, his assassination does deal at least a psychological blow that somebody of that stature has now been killed, presumably by Israel.